Alright, so Denia is finally alive, a support designed for Aemeath and Luuk Herssen. But I'll be straight with you from the start, Denia is primarily designed for Dr. Luuk, and you really shouldn't prefer her for Aemeath, unless without Lynae and Mornye. From my testing for free-to-play and casual players, Fusion Burst is honestly worse than Rupture in pretty much every aspect, and you'll see why in a moment. So without further ado, let the comparison begin. Alright, so first thing first, here's my build for F2P Denia, using the best free-to-play latifier, the Cosmic Ripples. And you know what? That's actually the worst disadvantage compared to Lynae, whose static miss is almost as good as a signature weapon. And speaking of weapons, Chisa also needs her signature way more than Mornye, since she's more like a sub DPS instead of pure support. Anyway, for the echoes, since I really did pull Dr. Luuk, I'm personally going with the Moonlit Clouds, so I don't need to farm 2 different sets for her. Don't worry, it's only slightly weaker than the Chromatic Form set for Aemeath, and considering my stats are pretty good, I'll say the loss is pretty much negligible. Finally, for talents, normally you just need to level her circle in Liberation. But since we are comparing her directly to Lynae, whom I already messed out, it's only fair to mess Denia as well. And that's everything for my build, so let's move on to a gameplay. Alright, so since Denia is a sub DPS, her rotation is actually extremely simple. Starting with her skill and Liberation, and then spam her skill and basic attack, and finishes with second Liberation. Done! It's the same even with intro, just slightly faster since you need fewer basic attacks. So yeah, she's simple and easy. That being said, the rotation is exactly the quickest, so you may need some quick swapping to shorten it, especially when paired with Chisa, so don't say I didn't want you. Anyway, I'm going to skip team building this time and straight go into the showcase, because let's be real, Denia is designed only for Aemeath and Luuk, and she's pretty much useless everywhere else, to be honest. Anyway, let's see how good she actually is for Aemeath. So after spending the whole morning testing, there are 3 main things I would like to share with you. First of all, this team with Chisa is not easy to play at all, as it needs a significant amount of quick swapping, otherwise the rotation becomes way too long. Secondly, because it heavily relies on quick swapping, it's really unstable and inconsistent against mobile boss, like this stupid astronaut here. You definitely don't want to know how many times this trash interrupts me and messes out my whole rotation, forcing me to reset the entire run. But most importantly, after going through all that trouble, damage wise it's actually significantly weaker than Lynae and Mornye. I scored 9,400 with Lynae and Mornye on the first try, but Denia and Chisa only got 7,500 after loss of retry. So basically Fusion Burst Aemeath is unstable, hard to play, and less damage. Yeah, what can I say? Okay, so they told us this team is amazing in playing West, and to be fair, they are not wrong. For my testing, it's definitely stronger than Lynae and Mornye, possibly being one of the best WuWa teams in this game, provided you can play the team properly, that is. Anyway, the score difference probably comes from S0 Mornye, since her buff doesn't work against multiple waves, and that means if you happen to have her S1, well, Denia and Chisa is probably gonna lose even in this mood. Lastly, before moving on to Dr. Luuk, I tried to run Shopkeeper instead of Chisa, and guess what? is actually just as good. Honestly, this shouldn't really happen since half of Shopkeeper's buffs are waste, but here we are. So yeah, I guess Chisa really needs quite a bit of skill to play well. Alright, now on the other hand, Denia is a massive upgrade for Dr. Luuk, with way stronger buffs than Lynae, and a much smoother rotation thanks to the longer 16 seconds auto buff instead of 14 seconds. As you see, even without Signature and Matrix buff, he's almost catching up to S0R1 Fusion Burst Aemeath, which is really something. So if you're a Luuk main, there's no need to hesitate putting Denia at all. That being said, the only downside is that for her to actually work, Mornye is actually a must in this team, as she's the only character who provides a buff called Optimum Build Efficiency, and Denia converts it to damage amplification for Luuk. So yeah, basically in other words, it's another team where 3 units are glued together, and missing one makes the team way weaker. Alright, so finally, in conclusion, it's pretty much exactly what I said from the start. Denia is only really worth pulling if you have Dr. Luuk, or if you don't have Lynae and Mornye for Aemeath. And by the way, if you pull Hiyuki, it's probably better to wait for Headmaster Lucilla, who is definitely designed for her, so no need to pull Denia just to save Lynae for Hiyuki. Anyway, that's my 2 cents about free-to-play Denia, so what do you guys think? Please let me know in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.
First in light! Endglow!